Cool.
Sorry, it's been a mad day. I nearly got killed yesterday. So
Oh, what
Oh
happened?
dear.
a big iron gate fell down, missed me
Good.
by inches.
Mikey.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that usually asks you that question: Netflix or cinema? Where are you going to be spending your hard-earned money this week? Seeing as this is our 15th show in a lockdown, we know that there's only one answer to that question: Netflix. You will be spending your money on Netflix and other streaming things. My name is Tosin. I am your host, and I am based up in Coventry in the Midlands. And joining me on the Isle of Wight, as ever, are Sharon
Hello.
and Shaun.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Now, Shaun is going to be... Shaun, you said you're going to be muting yourself every now and then because you are getting yourself a well-earned dinner as we record.
I am. Yes, indeed. So do excuse me if I sort of mute for a little bit, but you don't want to hear a load of chumming, I'm sure.
All right, so every now and then, Shaun might go a little bit silent while Sharon and I go on and talk about stuff. So, I mean, this, after a couple of weeks in which we've had, the back and forth push and pull of cinema saying we're coming back and then film saying we're not and all that, it's been a pretty quiet week. We haven't really heard anything on that.
I had an email from Cineworld because I have a Cineworld Unlimited card, and they said to me this week, we have activated your card again.
Oh.
And we've given you all these extra, my Cineworld Plus account, they've given me an extra 6 months on, and they've given me an extra period to cash in sort of vouchers and sweeties and things. And they said they're now taking bookings for screenings after the 31st of July.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So looking at my calendar on the wall, from tomorrow. No, is it tomorrow? Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow's
I have
31st.
no idea what the day is.
Yeah,
From
tomorrow's
tomorrow,
the 31st,
they're starting to screen from tomorrow. And I looked at my cinema, Newport Isle of Wight, and yes, they are taking bookings for 6 films.
Oh.
What are the 6 films, Sharon?
There are a couple of them are re-releases, but the new releases is one that's called Proxima with Ava Green.
Oh, yeah.
There's Unhinged with Russell Crowe. There's a cartoon, an animated film.
The disdain.
We love
the
that.
disdain.
Can't remember what that was, obviously. There's another couple of animated. There's an animated classic as well I didn't pay much attention to, I have to say. And then they're re-showing Empire Strikes Back. They're taking bookings for that. It's having an anniversary show.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the other ones. There's a couple of ones I've definitely seen, all of them on anniversary shows, but
Well, let's see.
I can look for you.
I got an email earlier today from Odeon, but they're still keeping quiet about what day they're going to be released. They're going to be opening up again, and they don't have anything open for bookings yet. So, all right, okay, that's interesting.
I received this yesterday, so I'm just going to see if I don't think I deleted the email, but you never know. I know.
So you're saying that it sounds like the game of chicken might actually be over.
It sounds like they're going, that's it, we're going to go for it. We can't keep on sort of dithering. Here we go. Tickets are on sale now, Cineworld. This came to me yesterday. I'm looking up on my trusty tablet. And it says, yes, we are taking bookings for Proxima, Unhinged, Onward, again a re-showing of the animated one.
I'm happy that's coming back.
And the Dream Builders. I don't know that's an animated, but I don't know anything about that.
Never heard of it.
That's a new release. And then the re-releases are The Dark Knight, Back to the Future, The Shawshank Redemption, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back.
Not bad.
And they're booking now for all of those. So some couple of new ones and some classics to get people back in the cinemas.
And you do have to book, do you? You can't just turn up. You just can't turn up.
I think that's what they were saying. They said that you have to book and you have to show up. Well, you have to book so that they know who's coming before that happens.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or I think that they said something like they prefer you book.
They recommend you book, but you can use the machines inside. So you can't, for people who don't have online booking, you can still use the
Oh, right, okay.
The cinema, the
Good.
tickets. So they must have. They said they've got screens up now all around the concession stands. They've still got concession stands. So I'd imagine there is going to be old and new.
All right. So Sharon, the big question is: are you going to see anything?
I'm quite tempted to go and see Proxima.
All right. Okay. Cool. Good.
I wasn't so keen on Unhinged, but I'm tempted to go and see Proxima.
Oh, does this mean that we might actually have a cinema thing to talk about on the show next week?
Cinema around.
There might be a
Whether
cinema
I go
around.
at the weekend, I don't know. I might leave it till like a midweek day.
Yeah. Monday morning, 11 a.m.
With
Nobody
the
in
earliest showing, and
Nobody
then
else there.
Borrow a sort of like a decorator's outfit with a full visor and stuff. So we'll see. But at the moment, I'm thinking I'm tempted to go and see something.
All right.
Yeah, I was just looking, actually. I'll probably, maybe Monday, because I'm away, Monday the 3rd, I'm looking at 7:10, but it will be unhinged. Because 10:5, because I finish at 5, so I'll go straight.
So you go straight from, you'll be in Newport.
Yeah, so.
This would be
Proxima,
fun.
I mean, I could see that, but that's 20 to 5, so I probably won't be finished by then.
One thing they did say, they're going to be changing the way they do things. They're saying you need to be on time because they're changing the way they do adverts and trailers. So it sounds like they're going to cover a gap between showings and to have them staggered so people aren't in and out at the same time. It sounds like they're cutting down on the extras. So you basically go in and boom, it's your film. You may get 1 or 2, but you won't get that half an hour of messing around. So they're saying if you normally turn up and then spend half an hour getting your drinks and getting your speech, which is what we do, we tend to turn up when the film starts and then we spend that 20 minutes getting our gear together. They're saying no, when it says that the film is on at 5:10, the film is probably going to be on at 5:15 or 12 minutes past 5. There's not a lot of, they're not going to leave a lot of gaps.
You know that throughout
that makes sense, really.
There's been this narrative throughout this whole through this whole lockdown period. We're saying things that Corona has taken, or it's taken Corona to get rid of some terrible things, and it's like
we don't care about the adverts.
Yes, and I understand it's a business and everything like that, but the adverts and the trailers sometimes are just really, really annoying. I mean, definitely the adverts, less so the trailers, but definitely the adverts. And so I'm thinking, oh my word, this might be a good outcome from the whole Corona thing. That if they cut those out, I mean, I was talking about lack of driving, but I mean, in the cinema, in the cinema sense of things, like the lack of adverts, this might be a good thing. First of all, I thought you said that arrive on time because they're going to have an intermission now in the films, and that's where they're going to show you the ads. We're going to
break up your film, so you have to stay.
We're gonna sell to you one way or another. All right. So that means that next week we're going to be having the review section. It won't even be so much about the film as it is about the cinema watching experience.
Yeah.
Come on, Odeon. I want to get involved. I want to find out what's happening, but never mind. But with things getting a bit back to normal, you might have been, as I said at the beginning, we said Netflix was cinema, and it sounds like Netflix will win, but cinema's coming back, and things are coming back to normal. So today we are going to reinstigate our 7-minute timer for our reviews. What we're going to do on the show, if you're listening to it for the first time and you're thinking, I don't really know how they could have a Netflix versus cinema without cinema. Well, we're going to talk about our viewing habits. We're going to review a couple of things. I think we have 2 things on the block this week, and then Shaun has going back into his history and watching something he's already watched. Then we'll have a film interview, we'll have a cinema interview with a film buff, somebody who just loves film, and we'll ask them a couple of questions about cinema specifically, as opposed to streaming. Then we kind of round off. We go off next week, and Shaun and Sharon get to go to a cinema, and Tosin sits around and just sort of asks them to live stream their walk to the cinema, so he feels like he's involved. I guess I could go to a Cineworld near me, but I have to pay money, and I don't want to pay any extra.
Not if you're paying. Not if you're paying.
If you're paying, that just paying extra for a film ticket after you already have an unlimited card. That just ruins the whole cinema watching experience. But
that's just wrong.
Okay, so straight up, I mean, Shaun, you rewatched The Man with the Iron Fists.
I did, yes, I did.
Which is kind of like and also like as like a sort of genre mashup that if I remember correctly, you absolutely loved with
I did.
Russell
Crowe.
Yeah,
Russell Crowe was in it.
The main guy,
RZA
from
was
the
a director.
Clan.
Yeah. It was obviously, and I mean it mentions Quentin Tarantino as well, so I'm pretty sure he probably put up quite a lot of the money for it.
Yeah,
and it was 2012, and I remember I saw this at the cinema, so I was the only one in the cinema, and it was in the number 2, which is a luxury one. So, and I was the only one there. It was a late one, and I suppose it was just like it was brilliant. It was everything I wanted in a kung fu film. It was like it was just a homage, really. I thought, oh yeah, that's from the Black Hand, that's from Aikido, that's from Fist for all that. There's a bit of Bruce Lee one in there. That was from the one-arm boxer. That was from the super Chinese swordsman. That was from that silly bad kung fu dub thing. Kung fu. Yeah, I was just like, whoa. And I mean, as I say, you got Lucy Liu in it, and she's always and some. There's Dave Bautista. It must be one of his first films, because he's in there as well. He's Brass Body. That's his name, Brass Body. So you can imagine Iron Fist, Brass Body, and it's all you got. These little clans. So you got the Lion Clan, the Hyena Clan. Have you seen it, Sharon?
No.
You haven't seen it?
I can't say that I have. No, it doesn't bring any bells with me at all.
It is. It's really. It's quite. Have you ever seen Shogun Assassin? No.
If you've ever seen like a 70s kung fu movie.
Yeah, kung fu movie.
I've seen lots of 70s kung fu. I just none of the ones you've named, obviously. But yeah, I am aware of the kung fu genre.
So there's all sorts. There's like weapons. You've got all these people. You've got the Gemini twins. You got the X-Blade, Jackknife, Poison Dagger. It's just like, what names could you? Silver Lion, Bronze Lion. It's just great stuff. And the whole story is just like an adventure because of the Lion Clan. They're supposed to be escorting this gold shipment. And Gold Lion is the top boss thing. And he goes, yeah, we'll do that. But Silver Lion and a few of the others, they don't like him. So they sort of bump him off and try to steal the gold. And it's all like, and then you got Russell Crowe, who's like the Secret Service for the Emperor, who's like after stuff. And he's a little bit, he's got like a laboratory, where he can fix stuff up. And it's just for me, I mean, I don't think it got particularly good reviews, but for me, I just absolutely adore this film. I'm so forgotten it. Like I was thinking when you have like a top 5, top 10, top 20, this probably would be up there because it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to watch, and I'm tempted to do this as an outdoor cinema, but it's a bit spurty, bloody and stuff. So some little. Yeah, that went really well as well, didn't it, Sharon?
I forgot to ask. Okay. So let's finish one thing. So Shaun, seeing as you've already watched this before, and I think we reviewed it a long time ago, you've kind of already answered my question. Was it still as good as you remembered?
Yes, it was definitely. Yeah, it was probably. Yeah, I mean, all right, seeing it on a big TV, it was still good, but I would like to see this at the cinema. This has got to be one of my. This will be one of my top films. I think that I could watch this again because I just love every moment of it.
All right. So I think the last time it was a 4 out of 5. Is it still a 4 out of 5?
Yeah, it's definitely still a 4 out of 5. Definitely, yes.
All right. Yeah. And quickly, how did the outdoor cinema go?
Really? Well, I don't know. Sharon will probably tell you because I mean,
I didn't get any pictures.
I've got some. I'll send them as you with the gate. But yeah, the water gate in the cinema. But Sharon will probably say more because I wasn't sure how it went. But I think everybody enjoyed it, and I think it was.
Yeah, I think it worked really well because the garden was big enough that we could all sit socially distanced in our little deck chairs.
Yeah.
I think the thing we hadn't banked on is the fact that it didn't get properly dark till much later than we all thought.
No, that's right.
So we started the film and it was sort of like half light, and then as it got darker, obviously you got more definition growing from the screen. But no, the sound worked well, and the screen was fine on the back of the house. And we were able to have a chat, and it worked really well. Actually, it was good fun.
As you guys are speaking, I've got to be honest with you. This sounds magical.
What was really good as well, we were thinking about the sound issues. Well, we were using a Bluetooth speaker, and I actually went right down the bottom of the garden, and you couldn't really hear it. But you was in the. I think if you're close to it, it was all right.
You're in a zone. Yeah.
So I think it'd be pretty. I think it worked really, really well. you know.
Yeah, and
So-
because I think when you went in the house for Eurovision, you couldn't hear it really. So I think the neighbours, we were worried about the neighbours, but
Yeah.
you spoke to them anyway, and they were fine with it.
Less noise than somebody having a noisy 40th birthday party.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Don't know comparison, but no, it was really good fun. The only thing is, it got a bit nippy, didn't it? So
It did,
that happens.
because I just grabbed a fleece and I grabbed a blanket off the back of the car, just thinking if we had no seats, at least I could sit on the blanket on the ground. And I was wrapped up like I was cocooned in all
was
these
so good.
blankets and fleece, and we all had our hoods up and zipped up to we had like this viewing periscope. But it
Always
was
prepared.
really good.
Yeah, this is for those of you who are wondering what's going on. Shaun decided to set up a backyard cinema in his house in Cowes on the Isle of Wight, and it went really really well for those who could make it. so
right.
oh, by the way, speaking about Isle of Wight and films and stuff, I got an email. You know how I'm registered to a whole bunch of casting agencies and extras agencies and stuff.
Yeah.
I got an email tonight, which just before we started recording, which I sent to you, Shaun, and it's about a TV show that's going to be filming on the Isle of Wight in September and October, starring Jared Harris.
Whoa.
Yeah, starring Jared Harris, and they were saying, "Are you available during September and October for filming on the Isle of Wight?" And I'm not entirely sure what the show is, but I forwarded it on to you, Shaun, because hey, you might get a break from nearly getting killed by falling gates at schools.
Yeah. I might be lucky.
Yeah, you might go stand around on a film set and get bored for 2 months.
Wow, that'd be all right. Oh, well, I love that. That's brilliant. What did you email it?
I emailed it to you. Emailed it to you. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I'll check that. Hopefully I'll see my Cineworld thing as well then. Did it come today, Sharon?
Yesterday evening.
Yesterday, right. Oh, right, okay.
Okay.
So I don't think I've checked in today. I haven't checked in today, so I'll do that later. That'll be a thing for me to do.
Sharon, I'll forward it on to you as well. This could be a new career. After gardening,
Yes.
post-gardening, it could be a new thing. Okay, right. So now, Sharon, you had something that you wanted to talk about, you wanted to review this week as well, that you'd seen this week. So
Yes, I saw a relatively
Fire away.
new release. A relatively new release. It's called, deep breath, the Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga.
Oh dear. Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
And if you're anything like me, that you sometimes when you see the name Will Ferrell on a project, you go, oh. Because sometimes he can be like a genius with his comedy, like with Alf, for example. And other times you just think you just try too hard and you don't know when to stop. So for nearly all of his other projects, basically.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure what Will Ferrell we were going to get here. And I think he just steered the right side of Alf on this one. I'll say that at the front. So basically, the Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Ice Saga, is he's a young boy growing up in Iceland.
Yeah.
And when he's a child, his family, he's a bit of a morose little boy. He's sort of, his mum has died and he's just left with his dad. And his dad is labelled basically the best looking man in Iceland. And he has a reputation for being a bit of a ladies' man. And so nearly all there's a running joke that goes through it, which I'll explain. And so one night they're all gathered together to watch the Eurovision Song Contest and ABBA performing Waterloo. And basically he has an epiphany. And from that moment on, his life is devoted to being the best pop star in Iceland with a view to one day being in the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah.
So then fast forward 40 years later, his dream is still to be a Eurovision Song Contest singer, and he has a band called Fire Saga with his best friend, girlfriend, stroke possible sister.
Oh God.
And because no one's ever quite sure basically how many children his father has. So every time they go anywhere, everyone says, "Is that your sister? Your brother and sister?" And he says, "She's probably not my sister." But there's no certainty there. So that sort of is a level of some of the humour. Basically, to cut a long, I won't give you the whole story, but basically they end up going to the Eurovision Song Contest by a freak accident that wipes out every other band in Iceland. And so basically there's no one else left to send as the representative of Iceland but fire saga. And so they go, and then there's basically one disaster after another, and they meet the Russian entry played by Dan Stevens, who has this. He's a Russian billionaire, so you get the feeling that he's like bought his way into
the Eurovision.
Into Eurovision, and he has this song called "The Lion of Love," and he has these 4 skimpily clad male dancers, and everyone says, that one of the jokes through it is like, are you gay? And he says, there's no gay people in Russia. and so it's, there's these sort of random sort of dance numbers that come up where you see them performing their Eurovision sort of things. So if you know Eurovision, if you like Eurovision, then basically you're in a happy place.
Well,
on the whole, it's a fun film.
Well, you see, now the problem I had with this, and the reason I haven't watched it, because it sounds like one of these things where Americans have heard of this crazy thing that they do in Europe, and are going to try and lampoon it. But the thing is, Eurovision, quite frankly, is its own lampoon.
It's beyond lampooning because it's utterly ridiculous, and they know it's utterly ridiculous. So
and everybody involved
fun at it.
Yeah, everybody in Eurovision. So, and because pretty much everybody involved in this, it's pretty much an American production. I mean, you didn't mention the fact that I think his dad is played by Pierce Brosnan, which is which makes the whole sort of best looking man in Iceland thing a bit funnier, because Pierce Brosnan is just one of those people who will be 90 years old and women will still be swooning over him.
They'll still go,
And so I just thought, no, it's going to be people trying very hard to make fun of something that is almost impossible to make fun of. And that's one of the reasons why I just don't want to watch this film, because I'm going to be like, but from what you're saying, it sounds as if that they've managed to find a vein in which they could actually do it.
Yes, I think one of the key things is Will Ferrell himself. His wife is Swedish, and he has been in Sweden during Eurovision. So he has been exposed to Eurovision at the ground level. So he sort of knows how ridiculous it is. And it's got Graham Norton is in it throughout.
Oh, good Lord.
being himself. And he commentates on them as a fire saga, and on as, I can't think of the name of the Russian guy, but Dan Stevens' character, he commentates on their performances the way he would do if you heard him on the television.
Oh, right, okay.
So he is himself. And there's a scene in the middle where they have a Eurovision sing-off, and where they basically do like a Pitch Perfect thing where they do this song battle.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone in the crowd is a former Eurovision contestant or a Eurovision winner. So you get Conchita Sanchez is in there, and you get, I think it's Netta is in there, and then there's basically a lot of Eurovision faces.
Do they get Betty, Bjorn, Agneta, and...
You don't see them. They do. You get a film clip of the real ABBA, and then they sing Waterloo in the sing-off, but you don't get... I didn't spot them anyway, if they're in any of the crowd.
Bucks Fizz? Cheryl Ladd?
No. It's more recent sort of post Eastern Bloc. There's a few of the Eastern Bloc singers in there as well.
Oh, I gotcha.
So I thought basically it was affectionate. I think that's one of the key things about it. It was an affectionate lampoon, not a lampoon. It is just an affectionate look at Eurovision. So in itself, it's ridiculous anyway. Yeah. So it was very good. And there's one song. Their band, they play in a pub every week, this Fire Saga, and they have one song that's called Ya Ya Ding Dong.
Yeah, Ya Ya Ding Dong.
And all the locals say, Ya Ya Ding Dong! And when you listen, it sounds like a typical Eurovision song. And it does get in your head. So I actually played it on YouTube afterwards, and I was listening to the words thinking, this is actually filthy. It's not... It would make the Carry On films blush. It's just constant innuendo, but it's sung in such a Eurovision way that you don't notice that it's absolutely one innuendo from start to finish. So that's actually quite funny, because you find yourself singing it and then thinking, don't sing that, because that's rude.
Oh, because I know Ya Ya Ding Dong. Ya Ya Ding Dong is taking on a life of its own, and I know there's something on BBC Radio 1 where they keep playing this sound clip of just going, someone just going, get back in there and play Ya Ya Ding Dong.
That's one of the one of the villages.
Yeah, they just keep playing that clip over, and I'm like, okay, maybe that. So if nothing else, this song is broken up. So how many stars would you give Eurovision, the story of Fire Saga?
Actually, I was really, really surprised at how fun it was, and I would give it a 4.
Whoa!
Which would amaze me that I didn't think it would be anywhere near that. But actually, I found it quite chuckling, and it was. I was finishing watching it when my brother came in, and he said, "What's this you're watching?" And I told him, and then I later went downstairs after I'd gone to bed and found him watching it.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Wow.
You see that, Sharon. After that review, you might find me watching it as well.
yeah. So you have to. There's a few moments where you're going, "Oh, enough now, enough." But there's enough funny moments for you to ignore those.
All right.
So it was genuinely warm-hearted and funny.
All right, cool.
Oh, good
stuff. So that's 4. Oh, we're having a good week so far. 4 stars. And now we get on to the thing I've watched. So I watched Umbrella Academy, and this is something on Netflix.
The second season or the first season?
The first season. The second season's out tomorrow. Yeah. The second season's coming out tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to this review, Toes.
All right, cool. So Umbrella Academy is something that I watched. Actually, Sean, I'm not sure if you do after last week and the Five Bloods, but
oh, right, okay.
No, don't worry. So it's Umbrella Academy. It's something that I found out about years ago. I remember when I first got an iPhone 3GS, and it was one of these things that was made available for free download, and it was the first issue, or either the first issue or the first story arc of the Umbrella Academy, the original graphic novel. And I remember reading it and not really getting that much into it. I was like, the drawings are a bit weird. What's going on? It seemed, and if to give you the basic idea of Umbrella Academy, it's like somebody's gone, oh, let's do the X-Men, but the X-Men are all screwed up. And that is the Umbrella Academy, quite frankly. So it's the whole idea, the storyline behind it is that there's this freak accident that happens on one day where around the world, 43 women all give birth at the same time. So all over the world, 43 women all give birth at the same time. The weird thing is that the morning of that day, none of these women were pregnant. So, so none of these women were pregnant. That they just all spontaneously get pregnant and spontaneously give birth to these 43 kids around the world. And there's an eccentric billionaire, think Professor X, called Reginald Hargreaves, who goes around the world and he says his aim is to collect as many of these kids as possible. And of all the mothers, only 7 of them give up their kids to him. Like, he pays them to get their kids. And he then, as they grow up, he finds out that these kids have powers, and he starts training them to become like a superhero team. And when the story starts, it starts off when they're all grown up. They're all grown up, and you can see that they're all one way or another traumatized by the upbringing that they had. Because the guy, he raised them not as children. Oh my God, I just realized what he's like. You know Captain Von Trapp at the beginning of Sound of Music?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Think Captain Von Trapp on acid.
Oh, wow.
That's what he's like. He's like really, really mean with them. He says you can have playtime between 12 and 12:30 on a Sunday afternoon. The rest of the time you're training, all that kind of stuff. And he runs the house like a sort of military academy. And you start getting introduced to all these sort of, it's essentially X-Men. So it's X-Men if Professor X was a crazed, fill in the blank with a bad word. So it's like, oh yeah, so and that's what it is. But I think that the series now starts developing into something a bit more nuanced like that, and you actually get to know the different characters. Like, for instance, he never gives them names. There's 7 of these kids, and he calls them number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. That's what he calls them. And it's only until later on that there's someone who they call Mum, and I won't explain much about it, but there's someone called Mum who actually ends up giving them names. And you have things like that one of them can teleport, but he also goes through time, and then he comes back in time from where he's been disappeared for a lot of years. He comes back, but when he comes back, he's actually a 13-year-old boy, while the others are like 28. and it becomes this. It's like a race because he comes back and he says the world is going to end in 7 days. I've got to figure out a way to stop it. I've been in the future. I've seen what happens. I need to figure out a way to stop the world ending in 7 days. And you have this team of people who used to be a team of superheroes, but they don't really get on with each other anymore because number 2 thought that he should be the leader when number 1 was the leader, and then number 1 is like Cyclops if Cyclops was an idiot. And And the interplay between the characters is really good. The whole idea of they have number 7 as well. Number 7 is like, the black sheep of the family because she doesn't have any powers. And so when they were kids, she was never allowed to play with the others. And all the others sort of like, it became almost like a sort of high school thing where, like, oh, we're the cool kids. We're going to go out on missions and stuff. You've got nothing, Vanya. You can come play with us. Go away, Vanya. Why are you here, Vanya? And it also plays into that. And to start talking a little bit more about the different characters would become a bit spoilerific. So I'm just going to say, imagine a superhero team. So a superhero family with some weird eccentric who has this big old house in New York, all very X-Men. And what happens at the beginning is that he dies. So their father dies and they all come back together. They'll come back together and then there's a strand where somebody's trying to figure out who killed him. Someone else one of them is still trying to be like a vigilante running around at night trying to be Batman. You have all these different guys coming along and it becomes like a family saga about how these people get together, but only that this time round they have superpowers. And one of them, as a kid, his power is speaking to the dead. And so he can't handle the fact that he can speak to the dead. So he's a junkie because he just takes all these drugs to kill his senses so he doesn't have to see the dead. and so you have one of them go experimented by their dad. It goes on. One of them is dead, but you're never sure exactly what happened there. And I think it goes really well. It's only 10 episodes. It keeps your attention very, 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 like you want to go, okay, what's going to happen next? How's that going to develop? The final episode of the season lets it down a bit. This final episode of the season is a bit generic. It's a bit generic superhero thing. People complain about a lot of the Marvel films and how they end up with like, a light in the sky and things coming out of the thing. That kind of happens all the way down to, and I'm not sure whether this line has the same effect on you guys as it does, but you know how it is when you have a film, somebody's trying to do something and one character looks up and goes, "It's working!" Yeah. Yeah, and even down to that. So the final episode, I think, lets it down a bit, but all the way through, I think it's actually really good. If you like your superheroes, it's a different take on the whole superhero thing. If you like it, comics is a good adaptation of a good graphic novel, and I would give it a 4 out of 5. And as we said, season 2 is coming out tomorrow. The way it ends at the end of season 1, it's a real kind of, okay, season 2 is going to be interesting. Season 2 is going to be weird as much as season 1 was. Let's see where this thing goes. So yeah,
oh, cool. That's really interesting, Toes, because The Boys. You said about The Boys. You reviewed The Boys, and I watched it, and it was absolutely that was class series.
Yeah,
now,
it is.
I did try. I have seen the first and half of the second episode of the first series, and I couldn't really get into it. And I spoke to someone else quite recently. It was about them. Because I saw the thing for the second season. They said, "Oh no, you've got to go with it. You've got to go with it." But I saw the first episode and I didn't really get into it. So, is it worth
for The Boys?
For the Umbrella? No, for the Umbrella Academy. For
the Umbrella Academy is worth sticking with. It's a bit of a slow build. Yeah. They know. Yeah,
that's what I felt. Yeah,
it's a slow build. Yeah.
Right. Okay, but it's worth it in the long run. Yeah.
I'll say it's worth it.
Okay.
All right.
See, when you're talking about the beginning of Umbrella Academy, it reminded me a little bit of John Wyndham's The Midwich Cuckoos.
Oh, yeah.
Because in that, one night there's like this weird power cut and people just pass out, basically, all over the world.
Yeah.
And then when they wake up, all the women in certain villages there's these sort of pockets, these villages all around the world. Yeah. And every woman in the village is pregnant when they wake up.
Oh, right.
And then when the children are born, they're all born with white hair and strange grey eyes. And there's like a village in Russia and there's a village in Britain, Midwich. There's these places and they have this strange communication between them. Yeah. So it's the hints of that, how these women, for all ages, suddenly find themselves having babies.
Yeah, it does feel. I mean, it does. I'm going to show it.
Would that be? No.
Sorry,
am I muted?
No, you're not muted. You're just roboty.
Oh right, roboty. I see. Oh yeah, no. I was just going to say. I assume you're talking about the Midwich Cuckoos. So it sort of came in through the conversation, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, John Wyndham. Brilliant writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do feel like with Umbrella Academy, there might be quite a few things that it's referencing that
People drawn upon these things.
yes, I might not entirely be aware of a party to. So I think that there's a little bit of a Jesus thing going in there, like all these women, virgin births, and then they're gonna save the world. That's the whole idea behind it. There's some John Whitman. I said obviously there's the X-Men thing in there, and it's just this sort of like soup that it's made. Becomes its own thing. It becomes its own thing. Right. So now we get onto our cinema interview, our film buff interview. What we have been doing, as we've said a little bit throughout the lockdown, is that without cinemas, we have been talking about what we've watched at home, and then we go and find ourselves a film buff, somebody who loves film, breathes it, and thinks that the worst thing that could possibly have happened in 2020 is that cinemas are not around. They might not say it out loud, because obviously that's not what you say when people are people are having it worse than cinemas not being around, but that's what they think in their hearts. And so we get there, we ask them a couple of questions. Our interview today is with a friend of mine, Wale Awelenje. He's one of the Nigerian contingent, the people who I grew up with, and got into film buffery together at the same time. And he's now based up in Sheffield, and this is what he had to say all about cinema and film and all that. We are speaking to Wale Awelenje. We're talking to a film buff. We're talking to somebody who just loves film. And, probably when you were growing up, people thought there was a problem with you because you just kept watching TV and you could quote everything and all that kind of stuff. People who I would like to call my tribe. So we're speaking to you, asking you a couple of questions. But first, before we actually get on there, I understand that we have been held up. We have been kept waiting for you because you're a busy man and you have many, many podcasts to appear on. And there was a podcast that you appeared on just before speaking to me. So let me know. Tell me what podcast kept us waiting. What podcast was more important than us?
Okay, so it's actually a regular one that I do every Sunday with a few friends of mine. It's called the Niger Nerds.
Oh yeah.
So Niger is spelled Naija. It's just like it's an affectionate way of spelling Nigeria by people from Nigeria and people who live in Nigeria. And what we do on that podcast is we just get together, get a few people together of Nigerian descent, talk about nerdy things from a Nigerian perspective. And we, from time to time, invite Nigerian creatives on to talk about their stuff.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. I will sit by the phone and wait with bated breath. But anyway, so going ahead so you mentioned Nigeria there. And you mentioned, so obviously we're both Nigerian. We grew up in Nigeria. And I think probably our film, you call about the Nigerian nerds, our film nerdery probably kicked off around about the same time and grew up around about the same time. And the first question we usually ask is, what was the first film you ever saw in a cinema, like in an honest to God cinema, not a CRT TV that somebody had brought into a school hall and kept there, or there's 300 kids trying to watch a 23-inch TV, no, not that, but an honest to God cinema with a projector and the surround sound and all that sort of stuff. And I'm guessing that growing up, like me, that was something that we didn't have because we grew up in Nigeria and those cinemas had ceased to exist for a while.
Yes, yes-ish. So, okay, this is. I have a rather interesting answer to this question because I think you primed me on it beforehand. You were like, okay, what's the first film you watched in the cinema? And I was like, okay, if I'm going to give an accurate answer to this, I'm going to have to dig into the archives of my history.
Yeah.
And the accurate answer to this is very likely to be E.T., the extraterrestrial.
Oh, wow.
I would have to confirm that with my parents, but I do have sort of like little baby recollections of sort of being taken to this big place and watching this movie and falling in love with it. But I can't actually remember the experience. So I'd have to... so that was, of course, when I was a child. I was, of course, born in the UK before we went to Nigeria. And then, of course, going to Nigeria, well, no cinemas in Nigeria, as you're very much aware, Tosin, for much of our lifetime there. So Movies then were basically VHS videotapes for a very long time, which we watched to death. I'm not going to go into that. Yeah, that was an interesting time. And when cinema returned to Nigeria, because it did exist prior to when I returned, but for certain reasons, there were no more cinemas for a while. Yeah. Maybe someday we'll talk about that if we have a Nigeria centric podcast.
I would actually like to know why they disappeared, but I have ideas and I have suspicions as to why cinemas disappeared from Nigeria. But I think it was probably to do with the 80s, and it was coincidentally around about the same time we got military rule. But
yeah, exactly. Which is also why we probably don't want to talk about it without it being on the title of the podcast.
Yes. So I have my theories about that as to why cinemas disappeared and why it took 30 years or something like that for them to come. Oh, no, it must have been about 25 for them to come back. But anyway, yes. So carry on.
Yeah. So the first sort of modern cineplex that returned to Nigeria was a Silverbird Cinema that opened in 2004.
Yes.
And the biggest movie that was playing when it opened was Troy. And that movie was absolutely huge. It was, I think when Silverbird Cinema was being built, there was a lot of sort of hand-wringing and a lot of, will this be a massive flop? Will this be a massive waste of money?
Oh, yeah.
Will Nigerians pay the equivalent of an entire month's salary to watch a movie that they could just get for free from movie pirates? And I think Troy just sort of put a sort of hard rubber stamp underline under the answer being, this is going to be huge in this country, because it was insane. The cinemas were packed, and I don't know if you've ever actually been to a Nigerian cinema, because there's lots of cinemas in Nigeria now. So if you've visited Nigeria,
I've been to the one at the ShopRite Plaza in Lekki.
That one, Genesis.
Yeah.
So you're aware of what the experience is like.
Yeah.
The cheering, the clapping, all the sort of interactivity. So just imagine that sort of turned up to 11, and that's what it was like watching Troy. Because as you can imagine, there were these huge battle scenes, and there were these crowds, and all the girls loved Brad Pitt and his anti-hero character Achilles. So there was lots of fainting and swooning in the theater, lots of screaming and lots of cheering, and it was an amazing spectacle, so to speak. So I have a very strong memory of that. So I would call that. So if I didn't have to sort of dig into the dark annals of my history and go, it was probably E.T. or Jaws, either one of the two, I would say yes, Troy was the first time I had an actual cinema experience that I can remember clearly.
So I just have this image now of whatever studio made Troy sitting down going, and here are receipts. Oh, it hasn't done that well in England or in America. What on earth? Why has half of our revenue come from Nigeria? What on earth is going on there?
Okay, so it's interesting, but I think at the time, and I might be wrong about this, but I think at the time, Nigeria's receipts were just sort of subsumed into South Africa's.
Oh.
Because they were getting, they were licensing used reels
from South Africa.
South Africa. I'm not 100% sure that this is what was happening, but I had friends who worked at Genesis then, and they worked for South African company that was bringing the reels in, and that's what I was told.
Yeah.
So they probably wouldn't know. They just sort of think the film was pretty huge in
South
a
Africa.
particular cinema that had 5 screens in South Africa.
Oh my word! Okay, imagining that because Troy was the biggest thing in Nigeria because it was the only thing at the time. So okay, so all the time I've known you, right? All the time I've known you, you have, and you pretty much you've put it in the title of your other podcast. You've been a nerd. I mean, I would use that word, and I would use that word to myself as well. But I think like your levels are more than mine. So you've been into like into the comics, into the TV shows, into the films, all that stuff. Into like you could go. You have I would say you would have like a bit of an encyclopedic knowledge of that. But if we go all the way back to E.T. the Extraterrestrial, so at this point in time, you're in the UK. Your parents take you to go see this film when you're a kid. Is there something that kicked off then that sort of like, so to say, burrowed down and then you took back to Nigeria with you?
Absolutely. So I couldn't stop saying E.T. phone home for a very long time. And yes, and this is actually really weird, but I have not watched E.T. as an adult.
Yeah.
I am actually afraid to do so because I don't want it to become a real thing, because it was this mythical thing when I was a child. I had scattered recollection. I have a scattered recollection of the movie itself. I remember things like flying on the bike and a lot of things that E.T. did, sort of like raising his hand and basically being a little alien Jesus.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the plot. And when we went to Nigeria, we didn't have a VHS tape of E.T. We had VHS tapes of many of the other films that I liked, including Star Wars, which had a much greater effect on me than anything else.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars would probably key in more directly to the question that you are asking, Tosin, which is, did one of these things kick something off in you? I think that would be Star Wars. It would be the fact that I had a videotape of Star Wars that I watched literally every weekend for several years of my life. So I probably racked up at the very least 300, 400 viewings of that particular movie. But yes, that is definitely something that I'm leaving in the realm of possibility.
That's what kicked off. That's what kicked off your love of this niche. What was a niche sort of like thing at that time of the fantasy and sci-fi and all that, and now rules the world. But
yes, you absolutely could say that.
Yeah.
There are a number of other things that I think keyed into my more general love of film, as opposed to my love of sort of like nerdery.
Yeah.
Because I mean, of course, as a child, I loved Superman. And there was a whole bunch of other things that I really liked when I was young. But growing up, I think when we moved to Nigeria, my father might have anticipated that we might not be able to leave for a while. And as a result, he brought with him several large leather suitcases filled with VHS tapes, on which he had recorded a lot of movies. So in his study, we had this, at the top of this shelf, there was this sort of like rack of like massive luggage suitcases, which you would open, and they were like treasure troves. You just kind of open them and it was just like tapes and tapes and tapes. And some of them were tapes that needed cleaning. So those were like extra mysterious, right? Because you had to go to these like special cleaning services to get them cleaned. And it was really difficult to do so. And then maybe you'd get to watch it, you know?
Yeah.
And so he had this massive collection of classic Westerns. My dad loved Westerns. And that was a version of my dad that I never met. That was my young dad, because of course you're a Nigerian, Tosin. You know what Nigerian fathers are like in Nigeria.
Yeah. Of our parents' generation.
Exactly, had to be serious, had to not be seen to not be serious. So he never watched movies; he just didn't watch them. You could tell
you're not supposed to have fun.
Exactly, you're not supposed to have fun. It's like you must always be serious. It's always like have the stern look on your face and always. So he just never watched his movies. We were the only ones who watched them. But he had everything by John Wayne. He had entire collections of Western serials, and he had a whole bunch of other things that he absolutely must have loved when he was younger, and that I know he loves now because he's of course turned into a big softie now, and admits to all the things that he loved when he was younger. So
it is funny how that happens, isn't it?
It is. So I would say that my more general love of film is something which I think was sort of like handed down to me secondhand through him.
Oh, wow.
In that regard. But my love of science fiction, of nerdery and geekery and that sort of thing, yes, that probably was kicked off by Star Wars and maybe to an extent E.T.
Oh, okay, good stuff. I am liking this. I am liking this a lot. So let's go forward a whole bunch of years. So, you were born in the UK. You watched your first film there, went back to Nigeria, watched a whole bunch of VHSs, eventually got to the point where the cinemas came back. You go into watch Troy. You're now back in the UK, and it's 2020. The government comes up one day and says, guys, that's it. Everybody stay at home. You're not allowed to do anything. You shut down. Cinemas shut down. Theaters shut down. Everything shut down. What did you end up with the final thing being that you'd seen in the cinema before the lockdown started?
Extremely embarrassing. And before you judge me, understand that this would absolutely not have happened if not for the fact that I have a cinema membership with The Light, which I'm not sponsored by, but I think I can plug here because I absolutely love that cinema chain, and I don't know what I will do without them.
The Light.
Yes, The Light. They're not a huge cinema chain. They've got just a few. They've got just a few branches. They've got one here in Sheffield where I live.
Yeah.
And they've got a few scattered around the country. They for a very long time they've had this cinema experience where they have smaller halls and they have sort of reclining seats and hot food. And alcohol and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And they have something similar to the Cineworld membership.
Yeah.
Where you can be a member for £17, I think, a month.
Yep.
And you can watch as many movies as you like, which is amazing for me because I just watched everything. So when the new Vin Diesel movie, Bloodshot, came out, yes, indeed, I did watch it. It was the last thing I watched, and I regret it. So please do not judge me for it. I did not choose for it to be the last thing I watched before the apocalypse came, and I didn't actually contribute to its box office total, not directly anyway.
Okay, this is all right because Shaun, who you shared your final film seen in the cinema with Shaun, who co-hosts the show with me, and yeah, Shaun did say that ended up being the final film that he saw. And Shaun's the kind of person who just loves film, and so he'll see it, and I think he sees it almost so like philosophically. He'll be like, "Well, that's the last one. I didn't like it, but hey, it's a film." And yeah, but if you are not alone in being going, oh my word, this is bad. So what exactly was so bad about Bloodshot that that makes you just go, oh my God?
So here's the thing about Bloodshot, right? Bloodshot is not one of those movies that is so actively bad, so abhorrent that it inspires like bile and hatred. It's not one of those things. It's not one of those movies. In a way, movies that have that effect on me, I respect because I think they are well-made movies that I disagree with vehemently. So it's not that. It's not as important as that.
I don't know. Transformers: The Last Night, man.
Yeah, but then again, it's not a movie that is so incompetently put together and so horrifically bad in a technical sense that it's almost unwatchable with cringeworthy acting and all that. No, it's not that either, because that sort of movie can actually be enjoyed in an ironic sense. You can actually laugh your way through them. So it is to me the worst kind of bad movie. The movie which is just a complete waste of your time. Something that you just sort of watch and you're done with it, and you're like, I could totally have just not watched that. And there would be no change, It's not like when I watch a movie that I hate so much, like I leave it trembling with rage. You realize, well, I needed to have that experience so that I would experience these emotions. Or a movie that's so incredibly bad, you can laugh about it over drinks with your friends, right?
Yep.
It's neither of them. I'm not going to be able to sit here and make sort of witty jokes or disparaging remarks about stuff that happened in the movie, because it was all just meh. There was nothing where it was like, can you imagine how bad that was? There's nothing like that. It's just like, okay.
It's like, meh.
It's just meh. It's when you're watching the movie, the experience I got watching it was, this is formulaic nonsense. And it turns out that it was pretending to be. Well, I hope this is not a spoiler. The movie's been out for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, spoiler warning. Okay, and then I'll mention when and then you can give a sort of timestamp for when the spoilers are done. So it turns out that it's pretending to be formulaic nonsense, because it has a gimmick, which is that they're creating a false reality for a super soldier that they need to manipulate, and they're sort of playing a movie in his head, and it's a formulaic movie they're playing. And that's the story, right? It's like, okay, so the movie that you've just shown us is garbage. You're telling us why it's garbage, and that's the end. Okay. Right.
All right. Okay.
I can go home now, can't I? All right. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's move on from Vin Diesel and Bloodshot, and let's go on to, why do you think cinema is a thing? So with all the good and all the bad and all the, oh wow, this is great and this is going to inspire a lifetime of whatever, why do you think cinema is a thing?
So, this is interesting. I do, in fact, have a lot of thoughts about this, but I love cinema, and that might sound weird, considering, as I mentioned earlier on, I didn't actually have a proper cinema experience during my formative years and early adulthood.
Yeah.
So you might think, oh, well, you should be one of those people who doesn't care about watching things on the small screen. And I'm like, no, actually. I would rather watch a movie once in the cinema and never watch it again than have to watch it multiple times on the small screen. No matter how good that small screen is. I mean, the best sort of home theater arrangement to me isn't as important as, isn't quite as impactful as watching it in a cineplex along with many other people and just sort of feeding off their reactions.
Yeah.
And I find that this holds true even in the UK, which might sound funny. But as someone who had his first exposure to cinema as an adult in Nigeria, which has a very different movie-going culture to the UK.
Yep.
There is an engagement with the movie that is on par with going to the theater over here.
Yeah.
Where you watch a stage play or you watch a theater. There's lots of applause. Every now and then there are crowd reactions, and it makes it an amazing experience. Watching a movie in the cinema is very close to that in Nigeria. Watching a movie here in Sheffield and in parts of London that I've lived is a much different experience. It's a lot more. How can I put it? The engagement is not.
It's more reverential.
yes, it's like there's a lot more. It's a lot more polite. I'll put it that way. You don't munch on your food. Don't make too much noise. Don't applaud. But you can sort of chuckle when there's a joke and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And every now and then there's a bit of a gasp, and if it's Avengers, then you can go crazy. But even then, simply knowing that there are other people watching it with you at the same time makes it feel different. And when you watch the movies, you can tell that they were made with that in mind. They were built so that they were built to put on a show for a captive audience that would give you its full attention for roughly 2 hours. And that's how they're made. That's how they're paced. That's how they're shot. This is in contrast to things that you'd watch on the telly, which you'll notice that there are many things about their design that sort of play to the audience they expect. It's meant to be a private thing. They can go into a lot more detail about a few things. They can spend a lot more time with sort of like talking heads bouncing things off each other. And they can have multiple subplots. They have sort of like cliffhangers, and they expect you to watch things out of order, to rewind things. There are recaps, there are reminders, there's repetition, while a movie is this contained experience. And I think that this format, where you have a sort of 2-hour feature, is a side effect of the fact that cinemas exist.
Okay.
The 2-hour movie is the thing that a cinema can excel at showing. A television doesn't excel at showing a 2-hour movie because it's too easy to walk out of the room and miss the crucial 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think that if cinemas go away, I think the feature itself, the 2-hour feature film, I think will go away as well. And I think we're beginning to see the first signs of that with sort of movies like The Old Guard appearing on Netflix.
Yeah.
So that's a really nice movie. It's really cool. But the most common complaint is that it's too short and we need more. Right. So everyone was like, we'd rather this be a miniseries. Give us 6 episodes of this.
Yeah.
Right. Show us, give us a lot of backstory and all that. I don't just want to watch 2 hours and walk away.
Yeah.
And I think Netflix will figure this out soon because they've got the magic data science stuff that figures these things out for them, even if they don't want to. And sadly, if cinemas go away, we just might say goodbye to the concept of a feature film that has that soaks up a large amount of production, soaks up a large production budget.
So, in summary, you would say the reason for cinemas is
the reason for cinemas existing is
the reason for cinema. The reason that cinema is a thing.
The reason why cinema is a thing is our need as human beings to have communal enjoyment. The exact same reason that concerts, theaters, and stage plays have been a thing for so long in our life on this planet.
Well put, well put. And now let's move on to the final question. The final question, which is when cinemas reopen on that day, if it ever does happen, because if you listen to other episodes of the podcast, you know that I personally think that cinemas and film studios are playing a game of cinematic chicken as to who's going to go first. But imagine that they eventually sort themselves out. Imagine we finally actually get cinemas open again and we actually manage to go, socially distanced of course, sit in a big, massive, dark room for 2 hours. What are you most looking forward to seeing?
Okay, so I've got 2 answers to this. The first answer, which is a stupid answer, the disingenuous answer, is whatever they are showing. Because I told you that I told you earlier on that I have no idea what I would do without the light cinemas, right? And COVID has kind of shown me what I would do, and that is descend into an abyss of misery and self pity. So anything, even the stupid Vin Diesel movie, would be enough to sort of pull me out of that. I just want to be in a theater with a big screen in front of me and with people around me. That's what I want. So anything, let it be Tenet or whatever, I don't care. So that's the stupid, disingenuous, emotional answer that I would give you from the bottom of my heart right now, based on how I feel.
Yeah.
Now the right answer, which is what my head would give you, based on what I was looking forward to watching.
Yeah.
Before everything went away, is, believe it or not, I am sadly not a film snob. I am an unabashed comic book geek.
Yep.
And I was really looking forward to, and am still looking forward to, Black Widow.
Yeah.
Because that is a movie that I have been looking forward to for a very long time. I have been looking forward to since 2012, when, in my opinion, she became a real character for the first time in the first Avengers movie. Prior to that, I didn't consider her.
I didn't register
myself. Exactly. So I didn't care for Black Widow in the comic books. I've always sort of been into. I've been more of a DC person than a Marvel person on the comic side of things. And on the Marvel side, it was mainly the X-Men. Didn't really care for the Avengers or anything on that side.
Yeah.
I absolutely detested the superheroes that had no powers and just put on spandex and ran around. It just seemed like an insult to my intelligence anytime I'd read the books, because it was like, you wouldn't write this in a book. You wouldn't show this on a movie.
Including Batman.
Batman was at the top of it. He was like the poster child for absolute nonsense, because you had to write a lot of sort of like Deus Ex Machina contrivance in order for Batman to even function when other superheroes were around, because it was just ridiculous. He's this guy who's got no powers and he's fighting on the same level as someone like Superman. It makes no sense. So I had no love for Black Widow. I didn't like the fact that she was a female stereotype, and at the time I didn't. At the time, a lot of comic books were not very kind to their female characters.
Oh God! No.
And I really disliked the ones where the female character was just sort of there to either sort of. In her case, she was always this seductive character.
I could go on a massive rant about Power Girl.
Okay, well, the Power Girl comes from a completely different, completely different angle. Although when Amanda Conner was on Power Girl with Jimmy Palmiotti, they did really good work with her. There were lots of sort of female creators back in that period that were doing a whole bunch of sort of like underground subterfuge. Yeah. So that was nice, but I'm not really sure anyone did the same thing for Black Widow. She was just this stereotypical man-eating type.
Kind of like a female spy from a Bond movie.
That sort of thing, yeah, like the bad Bond girl.
Yeah.
So she's just like bad forever, and then she kept dying and coming back. It's stupid.
So at the moment, you're looking forward to a Black Widow movie.
So
Marvel have pulled some sort of alchemy over the last 10 years, and have going to the point where you're like, you know what? Yeah, Natasha Romanov.
Avengers, the first one, and this is not when she first appeared in Iron Man 2. I disliked her there as well.
Yep.
The first Avengers movie, she leapt off the screen. To me, Black Widow is Scarlett Johansson's version of the character.
Yeah.
I love that version of the character. I think she is amazing, and I've waited for her movie for years and years and years. I've sort of like hung on every rumor that the movie was coming out. Felt disappointment every time it didn't come out. It's just this sort of like push and pull, back and forth thing. And so to find out that it was actually going to come out was amazing, and I've been looking forward to it ever since. So yeah, that's what I would be most excited to see.
You see, that is my That's my answer to the question as well. I think with me, it's more when people say, "What are you most looking forward to?" I'm like, whatever Marvel does next is that's my genuine answer, and it happens to be Black Widow, because I feel like those people. I said it on the podcast last week with the interview that I had with Juwan, and I said that essentially with whatever Marvel does next, because those people have earned my trust over the last decade. They've earned my trust because they have had many chances to mess this up many different ways from Sunday, and they have avoided all of them. And even though personally, unlike you, when you talk about Black Widow, whenever they said a Black Widow movie, I was like, I'm not sure about that. Not because I don't want there to be a female-led superhero movie, I do, but it's that I feel like that character works best in the shadows, and not when a spotlight is put on her, and not when you start saying, "Oh, and let's give you her backstory, and this is why she's this way," and so I'm like, I think for me the best Black Widow that we got was Captain America: Winter Soldier. I loved her in that film. I was
going to mention that, because when you said something like a Black Widow movie, I was going to tell you we had a Black Widow movie, and it was Winter Soldier. That was a Black Widow movie.
Yeah, but it's like the way it's done, the way that she's used in that. I love it because you are not being given all the insight to her past and all this. This is what she's like, and I always thought, like, I think she works brilliantly as a supporting character, as part of an ensemble. And I am not sure that moving her front and center, it might ruin the character. But as I said, Marvel have built up a lot of trust with me over the last decade. So I'm like, okay, cool. If you guys think it's a good idea, let me see. let me see it. I am more than happy to have been wrong.
I have pretty much the same attitude to you, which is it's Marvel. They know what they're doing, because I mean we've seen characters that you think how does this character hold on to a movie by themselves, and they do, because Marvel has ways of making it work. They create compelling supporting characters for that character, and they have that character play off those characters. I mean, look at Black Panther. I mean, everyone walked out of Black Panther talking about Okoye and Nakia and
pretty much all the women.
Killmonger, exactly. And Black Panther was basically, he was just the thing in the center that just kind of like they all sort of played off, right?
Yeah.
And even Captain Marvel was like that. I mean, people walked into Captain Marvel ready to hate it, because they hated the actress, and they were like, we hate her and we hate her movie. But you couldn't walk out of the movie and hate Scott Mendelssohn's Skrull character, who was pretty much the main character. He and Samuel L. Jackson and the cat, you know. So I have confidence. Now I have a different kind of confidence for Marvel. They have. I give them some latitude, because one thing about Marvel's movies is that I've always enjoyed them, but I've never been blown away by them. So, except for Avengers Endgame and Black Panther, for the most part, I just sort of enjoyed them. So I just know they are reliably entertaining.
Yes.
So that, to be honest, works as a sort of armor for them, because I never walk in with overblown expectations.
Yeah.
I don't ever expect it to completely redefine my sense of self. I just know that I'm going to have a good time. And I know that if it's focusing on a particular character, I will now have an excuse to a place where I can see that character a lot.
Yeah. Okay, right. Thank you very much. I believe that is the end of our questions. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast interview, and thank you so much for talking about cinema and the love of cinema, and how we just want to keep celebrating it until it comes back. Thank
you very much for having me as well. Thank you for tolerating my rambling and interruptions.
Don't worry. By the time I finish cutting this together, you'll be totally eloquent. Oh. Yes, once again, thank you very much, Wale, for coming onto the show. Thank you for coming and thank you for talking to us about your stuff. And I hope I did cut out a lot of your rambling and actually make you sound eloquent. What do you guys think? Did he sound eloquent?
Yeah, he did sound like very eloquent.
That's all me. That is all me. It has nothing to do with him whatsoever. I was the one that made it happen.
Oh, right, okay. And I mean, he sounds a real interesting character because obviously, if his dad likes westerns, he's me and Sharon. We're affiliates there, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. When he was talking about his westerns and his dad with like the suitcases full of tapes of all the John Wayne movies, I was like, oh, good Lord. Sean could have a field day with this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was the first. That was
all of them on DVD.
One of the things I picked up on was. And he said, what was interesting was when he said that it was actually his dad that was watching these that he thinks got him into his movies, which reminds me very much, probably. I mean, my father, I remember when I was younger, and he'd sit down and he'd watch the westerns and he'd watch The Life of a Bengal Lancer and he'd watch all those sort of, Three Sergeants and all those films, and I remember having to sit there watch them, and I really enjoyed them as well. And I enjoyed in fact, I've got a book which I can't find by Al Murray called Watching Movies with My Dad, and I think that must be where a chip off the old block where I'm like, oh well, that's not the right machine gun, or that's not the right tank. They wouldn't have that there. So I can blame good old Pop for that.
I used to, I did the same, watch films with my dad, and the only thing he used to make him laugh particularly was if on westerns was when someone got shot and they'd go, oh, and he'd say, that's not what you do when you get shot. And it'd always make him laugh because he'd always go, the way they do on these films.
Yeah, they were sort of like they clutch their chest, spin around and then fall into a horse trough or something.
Yeah. And there's a couple of ones where John Wayne gets shot and he sort of goes, but he manly sort of struggles on, doesn't he? He sort of staggers a bit, then just keeps that would make him laugh and laugh, just the way they would, and it's only later when we thought, hang on a minute, that means you know what people look like when they've been shot, or that sort of...
Well, is it a bit like what Wale was talking about, like when you realize that there's a version of your dad you never met?
Yes, that yeah.
You mentioned there's a version of your dad you never met, so you're like, hang on a second, you know what? Did you shoot people?
Yeah. You've shot people, haven't you? But yes, he was always a bit quiet about that, actually. We'd ask him, have you killed anyone, Dad? And he would never answer us, so we probably think that means he probably did.
He probably did.
But, yeah.
Yeah, similar thing with my dad, really. But, I mean, he sounds like so good as well. Look, he loves his comics.
Wale loves his comics. I think there were a group of us. There was Wale, Shegun, Benga, and we were into comics, and growing up in Nigeria, into comics, and around the age where we couldn't get regular comics. So I remember that there would be these comics that would be ripped apart, and they would be bedraggled, and they wouldn't have like a front page or an end page. So you only get to read the middle of the story and never find out how the story ended. That we would pass around each other, but we loved our comics. But I think all of us, even though we love them, Wale takes it to another level. Like there's a bit in the conversation, there's a bit in the interview with him where it's a bit like, I feel like that must be what it's like when people are speaking to me about film. Like people have often said, like they've like when we speak about film and everything like that. Like, I remember my cousin Tosin, who gave us the first load of what happened when cinemas came to Nigeria in his interview. And before he came on, he listened to a couple of episodes of the podcast, and he was like, I don't think I can come on the podcast, guys. I'm not knowledgeable like you guys, because you guys are just name dropping films left, right, and center. I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough. And I got a little taste of what he must have felt like when I was speaking to Wale, and I said something about Power Girl, and I said something about comics. And he went, oh, yeah, that's because this guy wrote it and that. But when this lady came on, she started writing it, and I got this immediate feeling of, okay, I am out of my depth here. Right now, I am well out of my depth. I don't know what he's talking about, but it sounds cool. So he is massively knowledgeable about anything that has to do with comics or anything that has to do with nerdery in general.
Do you know what I found quite interesting was his choice when he was saying that obviously he likes Black Widow, but he was saying he liked the X-Men movies, didn't he? Which, I mean, I didn't mind the X-Men movies. I know they got a lot of bad press, but did he think? Am I wrong in thinking that he like the X-Men was one of his top sort of comics?
He said that. Yeah, he did like the X-Men. He said he was more DC.
Yeah.
He didn't really read much Marvel apart from the X-Men.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
but he's looking forward to Black Widow, which we've mentioned it, but we haven't had anyone as their top pick for the what's coming soon.
No.
Have we really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I cut it out. I might have cut it out of the interview for time reasons or anything. But I did say that it is the film I'm most looking forward to, but not because it's Black Widow, but because my answer to what film are you looking forward to most
Marvel.
is it's whatever Marvel do next.
I know.
That's my answer to the question. So, and that happens to be Black Widow. So it will be interesting. Apparently, November. That's when we're expecting Black Widow now. November.
Okay,
November.
push it back a bit
Wow.
more. But it's interesting, his early films. There's like he had that experience of watching films in Britain before they went back to Nigeria, and then having that sort of, I don't know, fragmented memory of watching ET, and then going to Nigeria, and then it's like, boom, this is cinema. Yeah.
This is cinema eventually after it must have been like 20, 25.
Yeah, big gap.
Around about 25 years. I think probably between 20 and 25 years before from his first cinema thing to the next one, where he actually got to experience it as an adult with Troy. Yeah, and I can just imagine. I think it still tickles me the idea that Troy I don't think did that well. It wasn't that much of a blockbuster over here, I don't think.
It wasn't well received by the critics. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I've watched it, on DVD since.
I did too.
And I liked it. So, but I know it wasn't critically, loved, and people kept going on about Brad Pitt's skirt, didn't they? And it's just like,
well, yeah.
I thought, I agree with Sharon totally. I thought it was a terrific movie. Really, really liked it. I've seen it a couple of times. I really liked another film. I know I won't mention, but another film that I liked, which has got panned a lot, is Alexander. Really good. I don't know what you thought on that one, Sharon.
Oh, with Colin Farrell. Yeah, I didn't mind that either. I watched that.
Yeah, but that got panned. That got totally panned.
Hated it.
Yeah, because I think I think that everybody was hoping. They were hoping that after Gladiator, that the Sword and Sandal epic was going to come back. And there were all these films that came in the wake of Gladiator, and I think Troy and Alexander, and those are the sort of films that came in the wake of that, trying to bring that back. And I think Troy, there was this thing of, it's not Gladiator, and so people, people didn't connect with Troy the way they connected with Gladiator. But I just find it funny, the idea that they're going, it's not going anywhere, but this film is going gangbusters in Nigeria.
Yeah.
What's going on there? They love a bit of Brad Pitt in a skirt.
Like with Tosin, he was saying how people would, your cousin Tosin would say, people would cheer. There was an expression you said, I couldn't remember what you said, that people would call out.
Like, O'Shea!
O'Shea! That's it, O'Shea!
which literally means thank you. So you can so you can imagine people in a cinema, something happens on the screen and everybody in the cinema goes, thank you! So it's...
And that they would, all the girls would go, Brad Pitt! Or whatever they would do.
Yeah.
Whatever they would do.
The final thing I want to say of this is that the bit where he's talking about how we shared film reels with South Africa. That's the way they did it. They got film reels from South Africa, and then that's what it totally reminded me of Cinema Paradiso.
Where they would have the cans of films.
Yeah, when they have the cans of films, and they have two villages, and then one village will show one reel, will show the first reel, and then they would cycle from one village to the other village, and then show the second reel, like for the intermission and all that. I was like, oh my God, it's like Tony Cinema Paradiso, only between South Africa and Nigeria. It's like, we finished with it, we hand it over to you, you watch it, you send it back.
And it's not as if you're neighbours either. It's not as if it's like, let's just...
No, it's...
Different ends of the continent, aren't you?
We are different ends of the continent.
Actually, I think... I think like with the BBC, when because they lost a lot of episodes.
Yes.
And pretty sure that
They
cars, all
surfaced
those. I find a lot of those are popping up in Nigeria. There's a lot I've often
Yeah.
seen. We found a 60mm version of the Power of the Daleks.
There's only those missing
the BBC
Doctor
archives.
Who's,
I think try and get them. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
and some
where
of
they
the
find
missing
out.
Dad's Army, they found them there. Yeah.
It goes. That's right. Found Nigeria and on 16mm, or found a copy, and it is mainly where they find a lot of the missing episodes. So there's probably these real cans of movies and TV shows, because I think they used to shoot on 16mm rather than 35, as well as videotape. So they just pop up now and again. It's good. It's great.
They do. We probably do have them there somewhere, because I did say that I have mentioned every now and then about how we just have random things showing up in Nigeria. Random things will show up on TV, and it'll be like, how did we get this? I don't know. Where's this from? I think it's originally German. How did we get something German? It's like, why is this here? It's like, but yeah, all sorts of random stuff showed up in Nigeria. I remember there was this episode. There was a version of Jane Eyre that would show on TV that had Timothy Dalton in it as Mr. Rochester.
Yeah, my favourite version of Jane Eyre.
Yeah, I think that just kept showing up on TV, and the only reason, and I never got into it because I thought it was quite boring, and I just couldn't catch it to the story when I was like, I don't know, 13 or something, and I was like, what is this? It's so slow. What's going on? And the only thing I said is that someone had told me, I hadn't seen any of the James Bond films with him in it yet, but someone had told me that's the guy who plays James Bond after Roger Moore. So I was like, oh wow, I'm going to see a James Bond in something. And I'm like, why is he just standing there talking? Move!
It's a very, Mr. Rochester is very talky. But that's the BBC version from about 1984, I think.
Yeah.
83, 84. Yeah.
It would randomly show up on TV every now and then. And a version of Ivanhoe. There was a version of Ivanhoe that we had that just kept showing up. That all I remember is that Ivanhoe was played by some
the film or the TV series?
That sounds like Stephen Waddington version.
It was
Stephen Waddington played Ivanhoe in about mid-80s.
I think it would be mid-80s, but I haven't seen it anywhere since. And it was just this random stuff we got on TV in Nigeria, because I think somebody in some TV station somewhere had found an old tape and went, okay, yeah, put it in. So we'll show that. Yeah, why not? But anyway, right. Anything else about Wale's interview?
No, it just sounds an interesting guy. And
I hope he gets to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His Black Widow soon.
Yeah, well,
we could mention Bloodshot.
Oh yeah, you have your brothers in arms over.
Yeah.
Bloodshot brothers. Yeah.
Bloodshot brothers. Yeah.
over your mutual appreciation, or whatever the opposite of appreciation is. If there's such a thing as negative appreciation of Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Victims, that's it. You're both victims of Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel, yeah.
All right, so
did you?
Yeah, sorry, sure. Yeah, Karen.
Did you see the picture of that gate?
Yeah. Okay, so you might have heard us talking about a gate, and essentially there was a gate that tried to kill Shaun yesterday, where someone had propped up a gate off its hinges, and it's this big iron thing that nearly crushed you yesterday.
It did, yeah, it did.
So all I want to say is thank God for mercies. We're really happy you're still here with us, Shaun.
I appreciate that.
We're thankful that somebody's careless workmanship did not result in something terrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're really, really happy that you're here. But we saw the picture of the gate. We'll put it up on our Twitter. And if you want to be the next person to be interviewed on Netflix versus Cinema, please do get in touch with us on Twitter at Netflix via Cinema, because we will probably keep this in some kind of form, especially if you are going to go to a cinema and you want to tell us about what your experience was like going into a cinema and what film it is you saw. What was the first thing you saw when you go, oh, that's a new question. What was the first thing you saw when you go back into cinemas? Yeah, that's a new question. I like it. But until next week, when I shall be sitting around with no cinemas and wondering when Odeon is going to get the act together, probably going to be 2 weeks after Cineworld opens, and they'll see something. It's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye for me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
We will see you next week when they would have been in the cinema and I won't.
Yeah.